The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus proposed another parable to the crowd, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be likened to a man who sowed good seed in his field. While everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds all through the wheat and went off. When the crops grew and bore fruit, the weeds appeared as well. The slaves of the householder came to him and said, 'Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where have the weeds come from?' He answered, 'An enemy has done this.' His slave said to him, 'Do you want us to go out and pull them up?' He replied, 'No. If you pull up the weeds, you might uproot the wheat along with them. Let them grow together until harvest. Then at harvest time, I will say to the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles for burning, but gather the wheat into my barn.'" The Gospel of the Lord. The hardest part of loving another person, especially somebody we care about, is resisting the urge to fix them. So this gospel and that reality came up a few weeks ago when I was talking to this retired high school teacher from Calhoun in North Merrick, a parishioner of a nearby parish, and she shared with me a story that connects with the gospel very poignantly and coincidentally. And it's a story about two boys in her class from a number of years ago. One kid, she said, was every teacher's delight, a dream student, respectful, hardworking, and kind. The other seemed determined to make every day difficult for the teacher, the administration, and other students. He disrupted classes, mocked classmates, found endless ways to test everyone's patience, and more than once, teachers suggested that he should be suspended permanently because he's ruining the atmosphere, the environment of the school. So she was telling me years later, she attended a community fundraiser, and as she stood online, a young man approached her with tears in his eyes, and he said, "You probably don't remember me. I was the kid in your class everyone in Calhoun wanted to give up on." And she recognized him right away. And he continued, "You were the only teacher who kept telling me, I know you are better than your worst choices." And he said, "I didn't believe you then, but I do now. I just graduated from college, and next month I begin teaching children in 4th grade." The teacher went on to say that she even surprised herself because there were many days that I wanted to give up on him also. But she said, "But I kept wondering, what if God isn't finished writing his story yet?" That question echoes through the Sunday readings today, all three readings. In the gospel, we just heard Jesus tells a familiar parable of the wheat and the weeds. And so we hear that these servants are eager to solve a problem immediately. Shall we pull up the weeds, they want to know? It seems like an obvious solution to what they were witnessing. Remove the bad, protect the good. But the landowner says something startling in one word, 2 letters, no. Let them both grow together until the harvest. His response might sound somewhat irresponsible. Why tolerate weeds in a healthy field? Well, because as we listen to that first reading especially, God sees what we can't see. We judge people by a particular chapter we're reading. God sees the entire book. The first reading from Wisdom that Anne read offers one of the most beautiful descriptions of God's character in all of Scripture. God possesses absolute power, of course, yet God chooses restraint. Divine strength is displayed not through domination, but through mercy. You judge with clemency, the Book of Wisdom says. You gave your children good ground to hope. Good ground to hope. So, when you think about it, in our society, in our culture, that often celebrates quick judgments, public shaming, and permanent labels, God reveals another way. God's justice is never separated from patience. God's power is expressed through understanding, step by step, through compassion. This isn't because God ignores evil. Rather, God refuses to define anyone solely by his or her failures. That truth should comfort us because every one of us has weeds growing alongside the wheat. We all carry contradictions of one sort or another. We can be generous one day and selfish the next. We can pray sincerely and then lose our temper in traffic or some other situation that we encounter. We forgive one person while quietly nursing resentment towards another. None of us is a perfectly cultivated field. So the temptation then, when you have that mindset, is to believe that God grows weary of our repeated failures. But St. Paul answers that fear in today's second reading. The Spirit comes to the aid of our weakness. The aid of our weakness. Notice, Paul doesn't say the Spirit helps us once we become strong. The Spirit meets us precisely in our weakness. And perhaps that's the greatest miracle, isn't it? It isn't that God forgives sinners. It's that God never stops believing in the saint hidden within the sinner. The saint hidden within the sinner, all of us. That perspective changes, or should change, how we appreciate and look at others. The difficult family member, maybe, the coworker who constantly frustrates or disappoints us, the teenager making destructive choices, the neighbor whose opinions offend us. Our instinct, naturally, is to uproot and to condemn and to dismiss or just to write that person off. God's instinct, as we hear in the first reading in the Gospel, is to cultivate, be patient. Patience, however, isn't passive. It doesn't excuse injustice or ignore wrongdoing. Jesus doesn't deny that the weeds exist in the world, in our lives. Evil is real and has to be confronted sooner or later. But it reminds us that judgment belongs ultimately to God, who alone knows every human heart and every possibility of conversion. That teacher who waited for a troubled student to become a teacher himself reminds me that grace often grows underground. Grace often grows unseen by impatient eyes. When you think about it, there are countless people who are late bloomers, who would not have made the grade in their profession or in their field if the decision to eliminate them had come too soon. I was reading a story the other day about Michael Jordan, who was cut from his high school basketball team. You could check out that story online. It's a fascinating story. And to compare it with the gospel that we just heard, Michael Jordan said, I succeeded, he said, because I failed over and over. St. Thomas Aquinas, one of the great saints of the church, was called, when he was younger, the dumb ox, and he was thought to have been too slow-witted to be a scholar. So in life, in families, in schools, in our environment, and even in the spiritual realm especially, it may be difficult to determine which are the weeds and which are the wheat. Perhaps someone once refused to give up on us. Think about that in the past. Somebody maybe refused to give up on us at some point in time. Perhaps God still refuses to give up on us. And perhaps today, as we reflect upon these readings, God is asking us to extend that same patient hope to someone we've quietly judged beyond redemption. The harvest belongs to God. So our calling is to keep sowing, understanding, love, trusting that grace is always growing, even when and where we can't see it at this particular moment.